This documentary explores a real criminal case. Viewer discretion is advised. On a quiet night in Austin, Texas, 4 teenage girls entered a yogurt shop to close up for the evening. By morning, their lives had been tragically cut short, and the entire city was left in shock. Decades later, the case is still shrouded in mystery, marred by failed investigations and haunting, unanswered questions. This is the story of the yogurt shop murders. It was December 6, 1991. The I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop on Wes Anderson Lane was a favorite local spot, staffed by teenagers eager to finish their shift and head home. That night, 4 young women were inside: 17-year-old Eliza Thomas, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison, her 15-year-old sister Sarah, and 13-year-old Amy Ayers. Just before midnight, a police officer on patrol noticed smoke billowing from the shop. Firefighters rushed to the scene, and after extinguishing the blaze, they made a horrifying discovery. The 4 girls were found inside, their lives taken in a brutal act of violence. By dawn, the news had spread, and a scene that was once a cheerful neighborhood hangout had become a symbol of unimaginable horror. The community was stunned. How could something so violent happen in their city, too for innocent girls? Police immediately launched a massive investigation, but the complexity of the crime scene and the heinous nature of the act would challenge Austin law enforcement for decades to come, creating a puzzle that remains unsolved to this day. Investigators worked tirelessly from the moment the crime was discovered. The scene was a chaotic mix of fire, smoke, and water damage, which severely complicated their efforts to collect evidence. They meticulously photographed the shop, dusted for fingerprints, and gathered every possible piece of physical evidence they could find. In the days and weeks that followed, the police department was flooded with tips from the public. Hundreds of people were interviewed, and several potential suspects were identified and questioned. Within a few years, 4 young men were arrested in connection with the murders. The city breathed a collective sigh of relief, believing the case was finally solved. However, as the legal process unfolded, serious problems began to emerge. The confessions obtained from 2 of the suspects were filled with inconsistencies and details that contradicted the physical evidence found at the scene. At the time, DNA technology was still in its infancy. The limited forensic capabilities of the early 1990s made it incredibly difficult to definitively link any of the suspects to the crime scene. As doubts grew, a chilling question began to surface. Had the police arrested the right people, or had the true perpetrators slipped through their grasp, leaving innocent men to take the fall? The legal battles that followed were long and fraught with controversy. 2 of the 4 men arrested, Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott, were eventually tried and convicted for the murders, based largely on their contested confessions. However, from the very beginning, the case against them was shaky. Their confessions not only contradicted each other, but also failed to align with crucial details from the crime scene. Key witness testimonies were inconsistent, and defense attorneys argued that the confessions had been coerced during hours of intense interrogation. Public outrage grew as the doubts mounted. Legal experts and investigative journalists began to scrutinize the case, labeling the convictions as highly questionable. For the families of the 4 victims, the years that followed were an agonizing ordeal of uncertainty. They had been promised justice, but now they were left to wonder if the real killers were still free. As the appeals process dragged on, the case gradually faded from the headlines, but it never left the collective consciousness of the Austin community. It became a dark chapter in the city's history, a constant reminder of a promise of justice that remained unfulfilled. Then, nearly 2 decades after the crime, everything changed. By the late 2000s, advances in DNA technology had revolutionized forensic science, allowing cold cases across the country to be reopened and re-examined with astonishing new clarity. The Travis County District Attorney's Office decided to resubmit old biological samples from the yogurt shop for new, more sophisticated testing. Forensic scientists were now able to analyze evidence that was previously unusable. And suddenly, the decades-old evidence yielded a shocking new result. An unknown male DNA profile was identified from a sample taken from one of the victims. Crucially, this DNA did not match any of the 4 men who had been arrested, including the 2 who were convicted and serving time in prison. This new breakthrough completely dismantled the prosecution's original case. In 2009, the convictions against Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott were overturned, and they were released from prison. The case was officially back to square one. It returned to the national spotlight, igniting fierce debates about justice, wrongful convictions, and the devastating consequences of investigative errors. Despite decades of work and thousands of man-hours, the yogurt shop murders case is still plagued by unanswered questions. With the original convictions overturned, the primary theory shifted. Who did the unknown DNA belong to? Investigators have pursued countless leads, even using a controversial and now discredited male-only DNA test in an attempt to identify the suspect, but to no avail. Could the wrong people have spent years in prison for a crime they didn't commit? The evidence strongly suggests so. Were there critical procedural failures in the initial investigation that allowed the crime to go unsolved? Experts point to the compromised crime scene and the heavy reliance on coerced confessions as major missteps. Many wonder if modern investigative methods, like forensic genetic genealogy, could have solved this case decades ago by tracing the unknown DNA through public databases. It's also suggested that communication failures between different law enforcement agencies and the limited forensic technology of the time created a perfect storm of confusion and missed opportunities, contributing to the prolonged and painful uncertainty that still surrounds the case. Today, more than 30 years later, the investigation into the yogurt shop murders continues. Cold case detectives in Austin are still actively working the case, re-examining evidence, and exploring new technological avenues. The unidentified male DNA profile remains the most critical piece of evidence, a silent witness waiting to tell its story. Law enforcement hopes that advancements in forensic genealogy might one day lead them to the owner of that DNA, finally providing a name to the phantom who has evaded justice for so long. For the families of Eliza, Jennifer, Sarah, and Amy, the passage of time has not healed their wounds. They continue to hope for closure, for a day when they will finally know the truth about what happened to their daughters. The story of the yogurt shop murders serves as a powerful and tragic reminder that justice delayed can often feel like justice denied. It also highlights the incredible evolution of forensic science, the critical importance of meticulous evidence collection, and above all, the profound human cost of investigative mistakes. The yogurt shop murders remain one of Austin's most infamous and heartbreaking unsolved cases. It's a story that has haunted a city for a generation, a puzzle with too many missing pieces. Even after all this time, the questions linger in the air. As potent as they were in 1991, who was truly responsible for this horrific crime? Could it have been prevented? And what lessons have law enforcement and the justice system learned to ensure that a tragedy like this, compounded by decades of uncertainty, never happens again? The past may never be fully solved, but the pursuit of truth for Eliza, Jennifer, Sarah, and Amy continues. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into complex cases.